Hello and welcome. I am Mara Cepeda. This is Rappler Talk. We are here today with Dr. Antonio Ramos of the Lung Center of the Philippines, one of the referral hospitals for COVID-19 patients. And it is also one of the facilities that are capable of testing COVID-19 samples here in the Philippines. Hello, Doc. Welcome to Rappler.
Hi, good afternoon, Mara.
Okay. I'll just dive right into my questions, Doc.
Sure.
What's the situation now at the Lung Center of the Philippines? We're in the middle of the pandemic. How many positive cases po of COVID-19 do we have? And, is the hospital able to accommodate the patients coming in so far?
Well, Lung Center, as a referral center, we are concentrating on the severe and critically ill COVID positive patients. So as far as that is concerned, we're able to accommodate as they come in. Of course, our facilities are limited, but so far we've been able to accommodate almost all. There's also been one instance when we had zero vacancies, but we've always had vacancies even in single digits, no?
Mhm.
And we're continuously upgrading and retrofitting our rooms, which are not actually for ICU settings, but since we need it, then we are retrofitting our rooms so that we can take care of patients who are on ventilatory support.
Mhm.
So yes, we, as far as our facilities are concerned, we're coping at this point in time.
Mhm. How many COVID-19 patients are admitted at the Lung Center right now?
On the average, we have about 25 to 30 a day, and then we have 25 to 30 PUIs, 40 PUIs. So out of our total available beds, which is 66, we should be doing more than 66. But as I mentioned earlier, we do retrofitting of whole wards, so that's about 20 rooms. Each time we close one ward, and then we put in the necessary monitoring equipment, and then when we open it, we close another one. So until we've finished with all the, when I say ward, it is a hallway with about 20 rooms. So when we finish, then we should be accommodate more than 80, mga 86 patients.
Mhm. So, how was it like, retrofitting the hospital to accommodate the COVID-19 patients? Because at the beginning, I know it was very difficult for the lung center because you also had other patients who were in COVID. Paano po kayo nag-adjust so that, you'll be able to, accommodate, follow the direction of the DOH, but at the same time, not neglect your other patients who are also critical, but, are not COVID positive?
The official bed capacity of lung center is 250. But right now, we have allotted like 40 beds for the non-COVIDs. And the rest, of course, including the ICU, and the rest will be for the COVID and the PUI. So that's about 80, 86 beds. Now, what is retrofitting all about? To be able to convert your private rooms into rooms which can accommodate patients who are on ventilatory support, yung mga naka-ventilator, intubated. We need to have direct vision. That is how the ICU is. But since these patients are in rooms, what we did was install CCTV cameras in the individual rooms. And number two, we had to put in patients' cardiac monitors and monitors. So this can be viewed from a central monitor in the nurses station. They can see the actual picture and they can see the clinical data. So kung merong discrepancy dun sa picture, we check the data. And if the data, for example, the heart rate is not normal, then we check the picture. Aside from that, we had to make sure that the doors, we can see through the door. So any of the nurses passing through the hallway can just take a glance and see how the patient is, because that is simulating the ICU setting. It is quite difficult. We're very happy that we've been getting support from both government and private organizations.
Okay, let's talk about that. Support from the government. Sir, do you feel the support of the DOH, the national government, in terms of providing the lung center with the necessary face masks, PPEs that your medical professionals need to protect themselves against the disease?
Right now, yes. Of course, initially in the first 1 or 2 days, everybody was a bit surprised at the number of patients. So it took government maybe 1 to 2 days. But after that, they started giving us the PPEs. They started offering manpower support. We're getting additional nurses from them. They started offering machines, test kits. Okay, they started offering, and then the other necessities. We need masks. They give us masks. But of course, we realized that so many hospitals need this. So aside from getting from the DOH, we also have help from the private sector. Number one, from our doctors. Our doctors put up a fund, and so because we know what we need, so and then we buy the things that we need and we donate it to the hospital. And then private enterprises, without, of course, initially we asked from private organizations. But eventually, volunteer. They give us the equipment, CCTV cameras, PCR machines. These are very expensive things. And they really want to help, and we're very thankful that aside from government, there is a good partnership with the private sector. And that is why right now, your initial question is, do we have enough PPEs? And the answer is yes, number one. And what is the indicator that we have enough PPEs? For the past 25 days, not one lung center, consecutive days ito, not one lung center personnel has tested positive for COVID-19. Because that is the score. I mean, if you ask me, are you doing correctly in terms of infrastructure, procedures, and PPEs? Yes. And then you tell me how many consecutive days negative COVID positive for your personnel. Our score today, and we celebrate it every day, is 25. We're very proud.
25 straight days.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm glad you brought it up because, in other hospitals like the National Center for Mental Health and sa RITM, sir, nagiging issue ngayon na yung mga personnel mismo, yung ating mga frontliners, nagkakasakit, nagkaka-COVID-19. So how was the lung center able to make sure that, for 25 days, none of your personnel is getting sick? I'm sure factor po dyan yung kompleto ho yung PPEs.
Okay. Number one, initially we had doctors and nurses testing positive. That was 25 days ago. But why is lung center relatively unscathed from this? Well, you see, lung center is a pulmonary hospital, and we have tuberculosis here, which is very bad. So even without COVID-19, we are very conscious about infection, right? So we have already these measures in place. And on top of that, we even strengthened our procedures, and we have more equipment and supplies now. So we even have a safety officer who checks us and tells us, you're not wearing the right thing, you're in the red zone, you're in the wrong zone, and you should be wearing this. And you mentioned National Center for Mental Health and other institutions. What we are offering them is they can call us, and we can review their procedures, we can review their infrastructure modification, we can review their safety measures. We want to share what we have learned so far, so that they can benefit from what we know.
Okay. Sir, kung magbibigay kayo ng tip, ano yung mga checklist dapat na meron sa isang medical facility para siguradong walang cross-contamination of COVID-19, protected po both ang patients, and all the medical professionals attending to them?
Unang-una, there should be proper zoning. Meron talagang red zone kami. Pag naka-red zone, dapat PPE ka. Meron kami, paatras yan eh. When you're in the yellow zone, or we're in the general area, the minimum for lung center is a mask. Anybody who enters the gate of lung center should be wearing a mask. We are an all-area mask. Hindi lang ako nahiya naman ako, nag-i-interview tayo. But in all the areas of lung center, a minimum is a mask, surgical mask. And then because of zoning. Number two, we have modified our infrastructure such that there is isolation. There are plastic curtains. We have put plastic walls. Number two. Number three, we have monitoring systems. We check if our personnel are getting sick. So individual checking yan. Sino ba nagpi-fever? Sino nagka-cough, shortness of breath, and then contact tracing. We're very familiar with that because we do TB. That is our advantage. May built-in advantage kami dito. So we're willing to offer all this to other hospitals which, in fact, there are other hospitals, I will not name names. They call us and then we have very long conversations. Sabi ko, pwede na kayo mag-start sa grade 2. You can skip grade 1. Kami, dumaan pa kami sa prep eh. But by force of circumstance, we had to improvise, and I think we're going to make this our standard. Write a book, write din man, put it in an operations plan. So we hope this does not happen. But if it does, then we just have to reopen the book.
Okay. So, kamusta naman po yung moral ng mga frontliners at the lung center? Apart from ensuring, they are physically protected from COVID-19, do you have any measures to also look out for their mental health? Because I understand iba po yung anxiety, yung fear brought about by this virus. And tao din po kayo, sir. So, maskin kayo, I imagine natatakot din ho kayo. But, kaming mga pasyente, we look at doctors, we look at our nurses to be the ones who can give us the answers, diba? So, how do you take care of the people who take care of the patients?
We notice that, personally, we notice that there are periods wherein you're so stressed because you don't know what's going to happen. Because nobody has any experience as far as this is concerned. Walang call a friend dito eh. Walang tumawag ka doon sa consultant because lahat tayo nagsimula sa grade 1 eh, kumbaga. So what do? We have a personnel team here. It's taking care of our personnel. So medical needs, including psychosocial support. And we're very thankful that we have some academic institutions, aside from our organic psychiatrists, psychologists, and there are open lines. In case you need it, you can call them, and they will really respond to you. Or somebody can report his colleague and say, can you make time for this person? And wala nang stigma dun eh, because we're all in the same situation, and we know that we need this. Now, number two, knowing that the private sector and the government is looking out for us, meaning to say they send food, they send supplies. It means we're not alone in this fight, and it's a very big thing. Morale is high because we tell them, look, 20 days, 21 days, 25 days, nobody's been hit. So we're fairly confident, but we are still careful. I said, you should be afraid enough to be careful, but not too afraid to lose hope. So, ganun. Magandang moral ngayon. In fact, we have returned to work. Everybody's returning to work now.
Dati po ba, sir, what do you mean by returning to work? Were there other personnel who weren't able to go
skeleton
to...
force kami initially. Di ba? Mahirap. So, we had to take care of transportation. We had to provide transportation for them. They're volunteers who do that. We use our own vehicles. Housing. We have to house them here. We have to feed them. So we're putting up in fact, we're finished with one facility from the private sector. It can house 32 to 40 air conditioned. And now we're in the process. If you look outside my window, there are two structures which can accommodate 30 each. So that's about 60. We can accommodate up to 40 outside. So inside, we can accommodate more. So employees can stay here. We feed them and they have housing. So they don't have to go home and risk exposure for their relatives as well.
So who among the personnel, sir, have to stay in the hospital? And paano po yung may shifting po ba yon? How long do they stay there? When are they allowed to go back to their homes?
Basically, of course, initially we had the offers of housing from very kind hotel owners, University of the Philippines, facilities there. But we know na limited din yun. There will come a time that they would need their rooms back. So we are anticipating that. That's why we're putting up our own facilities. Now, when do they can go home anytime they want. But the thing is, they're fairly familiar with the guidelines, so they know what to watch out for. Then every time somebody walks by, we hit them with the thermal infrared thermometer, so we know who's having fevers, and we report with these things to the triage.
So let's go into COVID-19 testing, sir. What's the testing capacity now of your laboratory?
Well, the one machine can do about 90 per shift, and if we're doing 2 shifts, we can do 180. If we do 3 shifts, that's 270. That's ideal. And if we have 3 machines, so 3 times 9 times 3. But the thing is, we have limitations also. Number one, we have backlogs. I'm sure everybody knows this. Lahat ng testing centers, dadagsain ka eh. Like if you can accommodate 300, pag nagpadala sa'yo 600, so medyo may backlog ka na. And we're addressing that while we are doing our current submissions. That's why we're telling people who submit to us, can you limit to this number? Can you limit to this number initially so we can address our backlog also? But full capacity, we should be doing results in 5 days.
Okay,
Full
sir.
capacity,
Mm.
manpower, all the accessories, and then swab kits available, test kits available. Yun yung max na.
Sir, can you run us through the procurement process that the lung center had to go through, to purchase the test kits, and fully equip the labs that you need to process these, to, train the professionals who are capable of um, analyzing the samples? Gaano po ba kahirap yung pagsiset up po noon?
As far as the infrastructure is concerned, sanay na kami doon kasi these are very similar test machines for TB. Halos pareho yan eh. But the DOH had the foresight of conducting training early on. December pa lang yata eh. They were training our people for subnational laboratories. So even before we had this, the people were already trained. And we're very thankful to the DOH for doing that. So, because you can shortcut the delivery of a machine, you cannot shortcut training. Diba? So, what was left was to set up the laboratories to the extent that it should be safe, it should be, in conformity with our ITM standards, and they visited us several times. It took several cycles, and I can understand what's going on in Marikina. Ganon din ang pinagdaanan namin eh. Kailangan pasensya and perseverance, and you will get the accreditation. As far as test kits are concerned, hanggang hindi pa kami, binibigyan lang kami ng DOH. And we're very happy about that. We can perform our mandate because they provide us with the test kits and the swab kits.
How many test kits and swab kits come in? Do they come in every day, every week?
Hindi, by batches yan eh. But basta huwag lang kaming mawawalan. As long as we can still keep accepting, we're good. I mean, the limiting factor is not the number of test kits and the swabs. It is the initial deluge of specimens, and we have to work on this backlog. Lahat ng lab backlog.
Sir, can you describe gaano po ba ngayon yung extent ng backlog in terms of testing sa lung center? And paano po kayo nag-keep up doon? I mean, how do you prioritize such samples to, process muna?
As they come. And then, we had to, ang aming adjustment, we had to from 1 shift, 2 shifts, and then 3 shifts. We had to recruit additional personnel, yung marunong na, so the people who already know can supervise them. These are people who are already good with PCR machines, but we need to reorient them. And so the initial batch, ini-spread na namin, so they can supervise the other shifts. Hindi ganun kadali eh. Very limited available manpower with this particular skill set. But we're coping. Right now, we're starting to do 3 shifts.
Sir, did you ever have to deal with bureaucracy and red tape in terms of augmenting your testing capacity? How did you get through that?
Well, early on, we knew that we were already, before the COVID, we were already assigned to be a subnational laboratory. Because we do that for TB, and I think we were assigned that for SARS or MERS-CoV, mga ganyan. So we had to formally put up a laboratory independent of COVID. And we were in the process of being accredited. Kaya if you notice, isa kami sa nauna. Hindi kami mabilis. Maaga lang kami talaga nagsimula. And red tape, well, you can call it red tape, but we call it caring for us because our ITM really took pains in accrediting us. Pag accredit naman kasi, hindi lang tinitignan, accurate ba results nyo? But the number one consideration, is it safe for your personnel? And when they said okay na, then okay na kami. Hindi namin sila minamadali. So we're happy with the way it was done, the accreditation of our subnational laboratory. We were delayed for 1 or 2 weeks. But ganun talaga eh. Kaysa naman tumakbo kami ng hindi tama at magkasakit naman yung mga tao namin, hindi pwede.
Okay. But sir, were you able to talk to experts from China who came here to the Philippines to share their knowledge about COVID-19?
Yeah, they came over, they stayed, and then
Mm.
at the at our setup, and they gave very constructive suggestions, like
Mm.
on quarantine. But basically, it's not operations; it's more for policy. But yeah, advantage kasi nila talaga is they have the experience. And like what we have the experience. We're sharing it with the other hospitals. Sila naman, they have the experience. They're sharing it with us. And we're very thankful about that. No? Because it's so easy to say that we are doing well or we're not doing well. Kailangan merong nagbe-benchmark. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a good benchmarking activity. And we're so thankful it was given.
Mm. Doc, what were the biggest lessons that you learned from these Chinese experts? That, the lung centers actually, meron na po ba kayo in-apply sa ngayon? Or you think you could apply in the near future?
Well, number one, they said that what we are having is logical, it's sensible, it's safe. But they were saying that in terms of quarantine policies, and I think it has been addressed. That is why we are putting up. We're not involved in that, but I think that's the reason that they're putting up these big quarantine facilities. I think it all partly came from the suggestion of the Chinese medical health experts that we really have to segregate those who are at risk, COVID positives. If their home quarantine situation is not ideal, they can house them in these facilities. Yung mga PUI is the same. Because unless we control the community transmission, it will be so hard.
Doc, naka-experience ba kayo, sir, ng language barrier when you were speaking to these Chinese experts? Because, we've been hearing that it was a little bit difficult to talk to them because of that.
Yeah,
Na-experience niyo po ba yan?
meron namang translator eh. So, and among doctors, it's also easy to understand when they want to say something through translator because when we use specific terms, um, you have to speak a little slowly. That's it. But otherwise, we understand what they want to say and they understand what we wanted to ask. Siguro natutuwa sila na nagagamit yung kanilang experience and they're so enthusiastic about it. We're very happy about the experience. Buti na lang, dumaan sila dito.
Doc, down to my last few questions. For you, sir, as part of the management of the Lung Center, what's the most difficult part of running a hospital in the middle of a pandemic like COVID-19? A pandemic that no one actually was able to prepare for, diba? Fully. Wala naman po talagang nakapag-prepare talaga. We have to admit that.
The number one resource for me is the human resource. So the most difficult part is convincing our people that this is our job and nobody else can do. So we have to risk it. Sometimes the job is easy, but this time it is difficult and we cannot turn our backs on this. And that's why we told them we were placed in this situation and this is the place of honor actually, and we should be thankful to God that we were placed in the position of honor and we're able to do something about this. That's the number one. Number two, of course, is we have to change our mindset. Again, we have to change our mindset into being very careful to the point of being too careful. And it's good. No? We do not touch each other. Papalitan mo talaga yung habits mo eh. When you talk to each other, di ba, Filipino, touchy-feel. Wala na yon. Wash your hands and we always bring our weapons, alcohol dispensers, and masks all the time. Hindi siya madali because you get a dry throat and then your hands, your skin become so dry. But we're not complaining because we're not sick because of these things. And number three, of course, sometimes you get impatient with the machines and the supplies, but everybody needs them. The whole world needs them. So we have to compete. And that's why I said we're so thankful to government and the private sector for really coming in and giving us what we need so we can protect our health personnel. So yun talaga yung mindset. We have to change the mindset. Nakakatakot.
Doc, ikaw personally, what adjustments did you have to make in your personal life in dealing with your family? Since the pandemic started, do you still get to see them? Pag umuwi ka, sir, parang ano yung mga precautions na ginagawa mo bago pumasok ng bahay?
Personally, my level is facility quarantine, meaning to say, um, I I made a part of my home an extension of the hospital. So what does it mean? When I go home, I go to the porch, I remove my outer clothes. Somebody opens the door for me. I go up to my room and it's closed. I do not see my family. I do not eat with them. I can talk with them through itong mga apps na to. And then I stay there, I eat there, I take a bath there. And then the next morning, it does not take me 30 seconds in the car. So, personal, yeah, I don't get to see my family face to face. Even if I go home, ayokong i-risk yun because I don't know if I'm compromised, if I'm infected. Although we have our tests, but I can never be too sure, and I don't want to risk that. I don't see and I think most of us, I ask my friends, and surprisingly, we give the same answer. I don't see my family. I go home, but I don't see my family.
How do you cope with that, sir? It must be very, lonely to do that. And one thing I noticed about COVID-19 is that it's a disease that causes a lot of loneliness among people. COVID-19 patients, many, if they become critical and unfortunately they die alone, and then their families don't get to see them. Frontliners, as part of the precautionary measures, you don't see your family. It's very isolating, sir. So how do we deal with that? I mean, iba yung effect nun sa pag-iisip mo siguro sa emotions mo.
Siguro kaya inimbento ng Diyos itong internet at saka itong mga app na to para doon no? That is the reason, not for convenience, but really to make this situation bearable. And how do you cope? I think what we should be also addressing is how does it affect the children of the health workers? Parang natatakot na nga sila na ikaw nagpupunta doon sa ospital, hindi ka pa nila makita. Diba? And for young children of healthcare workers, I think that should be addressed also. That's why I write them notes. I leave messages on our yung mga social media. I send them pictures. And pag pababa ko, I knock on the door and they're inside. I knock on the door. I'm going now. Ayun, yung mga ganun ba? You have to, but if they ask me until when will this last, and unfortunately the answer is I do not know. There are people who have died and we did not have the opportunity to mourn friends. Ganun talaga eh.
We're down to my last few questions na, Doc. Much has been said about how the government has been responding to the COVID-19 patients. I understand, sir, from our conversation that, Long Center is one of the luckier medical facilities here in the country kasi ramdam niyo po yung suporta. Now, the government now is studying whether or not to extend the lockdown in Luzon and other parts of the country. If you were to give an advice to President Rodrigo Duterte or Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, or just the national government in general, what suggestion would you give them coming from your experience on the ground?
Based on the information that we have, localized Lung Center, after the enhanced community quarantine, several weeks after that, the numbers were flat. They were really flat. The numbers were going down. We had the chance to retrofit and refurbish and upgrade. That is why when we see dati, daming admissions, daming mortalities, but we have days like today, zero mortalities, admissions 3. So despite the fact that 2 units are closed for retrofitting, we still have a lot of vacancies, single digit lang. So if you ask us from our point of view, this enhanced community quarantine has been good from the health services point of view. Because if there is a modification which will result in a surge, then and the health system is overwhelmed, then I think it's game over. Of course, we understand it's difficult for the people staying at home. Wala silang trabaho. So, but the thing is, we have finite resources. I'll tell you one, ventilators. End of the day, people die from ventilatory failure, respiratory failure. And we have a finite number of ventilators. Lung Center at the moment, 52. Imagine, kung puno na yung 52 because there is a surge, what will happen to the 53rd patient? What will we say? I'm sorry, right? So we do not want to hit the 52. We even do not want to hit more than 2/3 of our capacity. Because if we hit 2/3, then we have our surge operations plan in effect. And that is really expanding in outside of the hospital, but it will create a big need for nurses and doctors, which we still don't know where to get. But we're coming up with the numbers now. It's called the surge plan. So with a finite number of ventilators, pag na overwhelmed, there's not much that we can do. So we're very happy with the numbers right now, and we really pray that it will hold. And if it would take an extension of the quarantine, then that is what we would suggest from the medical point of view.
Doc, for my final question, we've been receiving, reports in the past weeks of, other citizens discriminating against doctors, nurses, and other frontliners. What would be your message to them? We understand this is coming from a place of fear, but if you can speak to them, what would you tell them regarding not discriminating against frontliners?
I think it's more not discrimination really, it's more of fear. Diba? If you see somebody wearing, scrubs with an ID and you have a mask, this guy came from a hospital, is possibly contaminated or infected. If they want to take care of their families, ilalayo ka nila doon. So it's not that they're discriminating, they're really afraid. And I would do the same thing. So I understand. But they should also understand that we understand how it is to take care of ourselves. And we will not expose them. Like ako, since I consider myself facility one, I don't take walks anymore. I used to take walks. But since I said, okay, let's not take walks anymore, so I don't go out of the house. Pero yun naman basic services. Huwag naman nilang pahirapan sa pagkain, sa laundry, sa tuluyan, papasukin naman nila sa bahay, sa sasakyan. Because pag wala po itong mga taong ito, sino po mag-aalaga sa inyo? If they cannot go to their jobs because they don't have food, they don't have clothes, they don't have transport, who will take care of you? Kami lang naman eh. Diba? And we accepted that job. We're not asking you to take our place, but please help us do our job because actually we're doing it for you. But we understand, natatakot po kayo. Okay lang yan. Okay lang, natakot kayo because as I mentioned, if you're afraid, you're careful.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc Ramos, for answering all my questions today. I know it's been a very, very, busy couple of weeks for you, so we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Mara. The media has been very instrumental in Lung Center reaching out our initial requirements. That's why there's been a deluge of supplies, which allowed us to take care of our personnel and our patients. That's why we do not shy away from talking with media people. I don't know. Personally, I don't, because it was a media person who helped us with our PPEs initially. So I'm very thankful to you for taking this time and hearing us out so you would know how we feel and maybe some facts on the ground.
Again, thank you so much, Doc Ramos. That was just Dr. Antonio Ramos from the Lung Center of the Philippines, one of the COVID-19 referral hospitals here in the Philippines. Once again, this is Rappler Talk. I am Mara Cepeda. Join us again next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mara.